Hey. What up? Now, guys.
Gals.
See?
Now, Tyler L. Skip Bayless. Are video games getting better or worse? I asked that kind of way. Better or worse? Video games, as you see the future of them, taking what video games have done, you know, the video games may be coming out next year or maybe 2015. As you see the immediate future of video games or in the long run, are they getting better or worse?
That is a tough question. Because I think with the new hardware, the Xbox One, the PS4, they're, you know, they can do a lot more. It kind of breathes new life into, you know, games moving forward. You know, games can do a lot more now. They can be, you know, a lot more engaging, immersive. They can do so many different things now that, you know, with the new game design, it could get better. And I really do think there's a bright future for at least console gaming. And at least, you know, whenever I play my 2DS or whatever, I feel handheld with the Nintendo stuff. It has a bright future as well. And I feel with new technology, you can do a lot more. However, I mean, you can argue that games are getting too complex, and that, you know, they're too complex now, and, you know, it's more about cinematic games, the cinematic experience. Games are turning into movies, and it takes away from the one thing growing up as a child that you loved, and that was just, it was fucking fun, man. It didn't care. You didn't matter how it looked when you were young. You just wanted to play a fun game. If it worked, you'd have fun with it. I'm not knocking games nowadays. They're incredibly fun. I can sit down and I can play Skyrim all day. It's fun. But it's fun in different ways. The fun back in the day, you know, with the original PlayStation, the NES, all that stuff, I think is different than the fun nowadays because of how it's presented. You know, when you play something like Skyrim, it's about the full experience. You just feel like you sink into your couch and you become the warrior on your fucking screen that you are, you know, in your game, and, you know, you just lose contact with reality. But the fun back in the day, you know, I sit on my couch, we have our controllers, we're sitting next to each other engaging in fun activities and, you know, playing stuff. Now it's, yo, dude, get on Xbox Live. Fuck kids up on Halo. You know? So,
Mad.
Yeah, bro.
It's a toss-up. It depends how you feel about, you know, games now. Whether I for one, I love the great storytelling, the great cinematic experience. But at the same time, when I play something like Diablo 3, that's more about just having fucking fun, you know, I like that too. I just feel that, you know, now that there's new consoles out, that's when the fresh new original ideas come out. So I feel that gaming moving forward has a bright future.
Yeah, I would very much agree with that. You know, I think in general games are getting a lot better. You know, again, like everything Tyler said, I'm not going to go on too much about the same things. You know, the graphics, what you can do, but also they're telling the stories better now. They have the tools necessary to craft better stories. Whereas you look at like the original Mario, you're very limited in kind of like the story that you could get out of it. Whereas, you know, you play, I'm assuming Super Mario 3D, was it World? Mm-hmm. So now, you know, that's probably has like a huge, like deep, or some, for a Mario game, probably like a deeper story than that. So they have more tools to expand the gameplay. But then the two things that I see that aren't getting better are, I think, maybe the fact that the stories are getting so complex is kind of a testament to maybe all the good stories have been done already, in a way. Like the original, Legend of Zelda games, for example, because I've been on a kick for those lately, are very simplistic. Again, the simplistic. All you gotta do is beat the bad guy and rescue the princess, and that's basically all you have to do. And there might be one or two side objectives in the quest, but then other than that, that's the story. Whereas now there has to be all kinds of curveballs thrown in to make it interesting, like Kingdom Hearts. Yeah, they do it pretty good though.
Yeah.
And so that's one thing. And the other thing is, I think the complexity, and I'm not sure how to word this, so I'll use the example, which is, again, I'll use Legend of Zelda. You look at the 3D Legend of Zeldas. You introduce levels and the 3D world, and now you actually have up, down, and left, right, and forward and backwards, and all the different dimensions. Whereas you play the original Legend of Zelda, it's 2D dungeon crawler where you can go up, down, left, and right. There's no sense of up. And honestly, that game, in a lot of ways, was a lot harder than the new games. I feel like with, the new stuff, it's hard to make games almost as difficult as back in the day. I mean, hell, Contra was, the hardest game because you had to go through, I think, you had to go through so many levels on one life throughout the entire game. And it was you sit down, you could easily play for a half an hour to an hour on, a playthrough, which back then was unheard of. So, but you had one life. So there was a lot more difficulty, but it lacks now. But like I said, the stories, I think, are getting much more complex, and since, I'm, getting older now, I like more complex stories. I don't like simple stories because, simple stories just kind of put you to sleep after a while. But then, like I said, the graphics, the gameplay gets so much better, and I think just, there's much more to do. Resident Evil 2, there could only be 7 zombies on the screen at a time, and then you look at Dead Rising 3, and there's there's literally over 100 times that amount on screen at once. So I mean, the scope and what's possible is a lot better. So I just think in general, games are getting a lot better.
All right, Keith Kilgore. Let me tell you why. I seem to agree with you. I think you guys made some good points about the possibilities, the capabilities of these new consoles, the amount of what you can do, of what the games can contain. I think that's a good thing moving forward. But the bad thing, I think, generally, at least for me, my hand's very red for some reason. At least for me, why video games are getting worse is I feel that in a more general spectrum, ideas are becoming scarce. At least with me, in my opinion. Now, what I like in games has to go along with this. It has a big deal to do with what I'm saying, video games getting better or worse. I feel that I'll just rattle off a couple of names here. Call of Duty, Halo, Gears of War, Killzone, Dead Space, games that all seem to be, maybe aside Call of Duty a little bit, the same general thing to me. It's a lot of, shooting, yeah. It's you're with this gang of people or something and you fight the bad guy. I mean, that's how games are, good guy, bad guy, and stuff like that. But it just seems to me like it's a lot of the same idea almost. Where it just doesn't feel new. If you play between those games, when you really think about it, yeah, those stories may be a bit different, and the levels, what the games look like, maybe a bit different, but it just feels a lot of the same to me. And there are gems that come out, truly, like Skyrim being a medieval game, you could almost say, with swords and bows, and there are trolls and giants and mammoths. That's something that feels refreshing to me. And even a game like The Last of Us, to me, did zombies and post-apocalypse the right way. And then you could even get into Left 4 Dead, Dead Island, maybe slightly Dying Light, of just how it looks, how it's kind of perceived, this first-person bunch of zombies type of stuff. I feel like a lot of games are done the same way, and there seem to be no games that are coming out that are, you know, completely, you know, separating themselves from the flock. As in, you know, Halo and Dead Space and Killzone. It's all, you know, you're in this big futuristic bodysuit of armor, maybe on another planet. It just feels the same to me. And where a game like Titanfall may look cool, but it's still sort of that futuristic robot feeling to me. And then you get games like Rise, I think, for the Xbox One that look interesting. You know, it's Roman stuff, but it's just... I have a PlayStation 3. I don't have an Xbox One, and I don't even have a PlayStation 4 yet. I haven't been able to play it, but it looks neat. It's a good idea. I like that idea going forward. The realism with it, almost. And you could say Grand Theft Auto, but Grand Theft Auto, it's kind of its own category of game, almost. But I feel like a lot of games are shooters. Maybe even Bioshock. Bioshock is a good game, but still, it's that feeling of you're always shooting something. And I wish there would be games that would jump outside of the box of that. A little more, you know, towards something that hasn't been quite done. Like, what's the game coming out? Quantum Break. That seems like a revolutionary idea in a sense.
You do shoot stuff in that game, though.
Well, yeah, but the whole idea of time slowing down, it's doing something with the shooting almost. You know, giving it a bit of a spin, but it seems like everything is shooting anymore. The big games.
The one counter thing that I would say to that is that it makes the games, all the shooters are easily accessible then.
Yeah.
But there is difference. Like, there honestly is a lot way of how you kind of have to approach things is a lot different from where if you were, I mean, definitely, it's night and day. Ask any of the hardcore fans of Halo and Call of Duty. You really can't approach those two games the same. Even though it is a shooter, they don't play the same. They don't feel the same. But I do understand, like, yeah, it's all shooters, but then all the big ideas have been done. I mean, if you're gonna pull that out, I mean, then Wolfenstein and Duke Nukem were the first person shooters. Those games way back in, you know, the early 90s, and then Doom, you know, games like that, and then, you know, Legend of Zelda was kind of like, in a way, the RPG in Skyrim before the RPGs and Skyrims were around. You know, it's like it's more of just revolutionizing and putting your own take on the ideas is really all that's left with games. Now, one game that came out recently that was really cool that was different was Portal. You know, Portal was one. You know, Portal was like, oh, it's kind of like a shooter, but it's not. But then, you know, there's things like that. It's you kind of just have to take the molds and just mess with it at this point.
A couple more things to add to this lovely discussion. One thing I think is getting worse, and this could be, it could be because, you know, social media is a lot bigger, is hardware failures with consoles is really bad. I had my PS2 and my original Xbox for about a fucking years, and I played the shit out of them. I played more video games then than I did now, and that's really saying something. Didn't even break at all. Had no problems with it. Same with my original PlayStation, and now, you know, I've been through 4 Xbox 360s, and you know, there's just, I feel hardware failures run rampant now.
I see what you...
Which, that's something that's kind of bad.
I see what you mean. You know, my N64, I'm pretty sure that thing's been thrown, has stuff smashed on it through the move, but then, like, you know, like you said, I've gone through my second Xbox. I've gone through 2 Xboxes.
My Game Boy Color that I had that I found, I've had that thing since I was, like, this tall, dude. That thing still worked, you know? Hardware failures, it just kind of,
it's anytime you put more parts and bigger and more things, it's going to work because now they're trying to fit a lot in these things, so they have to be smaller. They're made of cheaper parts.
Cool them,
and
they try to, because there's so much demand, they're trying to manufacture them very fast.
So they have to get cheap, and then that's why things break.
Yeah, it just seems like they always fucking break.
I mean,
Yeah, I mean, at least to say a bit about was saying about games earlier, I mean, I can agree. At least from what I played of Halo, they definitely play differently, and you could say the same about BioShock and Gears of War, all the games and stuff like that. But at least what I'm kind of waiting for is something groundbreaking in a way. I feel like my expectations may be a little high, and maybe a little bit off-put because they're dealing with my personal pleasures in video games. I'm waiting for something that at least entirely breaks the mold, almost. Like Skyrim can come in, and yeah, you're shooting with a bow and you're killing stuff with a sword, but something, at least, it's different enough than Call of Duty and a lot of the bigger name games, I guess. Like Journey comes in, and it's a phenomenal game. Yeah, you could sit down and beat it in about 6 hours, and in a day, I guess. It doesn't take that long, and a game that I'm excited for, No Man's Sky. I like to play that one. The reason I'm excited for it is because, at least from what I've seen, there are multiple planes you can be on. You can be in the water, you can be on land, and you can fly into space. It's that explorative kind of thing that's not Grand Theft Auto exploring, a city and stuff, all that you've seen before. Call of Duty, I don't mean to sound jaded, but I feel like I've seen a lot of it before. I'm waiting for something like No Man's Sky to truly break a couple of planes in video games where you can explore more, and there's, just a greater personal interest, that is. A greater feeling to it. And don't get me wrong, Call of Duty is fun for what it is, yeah. But, I don't know. At least going back to games like Tyler said earlier, games are becoming a lot more competitive and a bit more complex in certain ways. It's not too entirely a bad thing, but sometimes with people like me, I'm not a huge video game person. Sometimes I can't entirely keep up with that. It took me like a week to get used to the new NBA 2K14 game, and sometimes I miss games like Spyro and Crash and Pokemon Stadium and console Pokemon games, that is. It's just, I'm kind of looking for something that I'm not sure of, but it's not here yet. At least I'm waiting for that, and until I guess my personal interests are met with a game that is very satisfying. Don't get me wrong, The Last of Us is one of my favorite games of all time. But something that truly breaks the plane. Like The Last of Us broke absolutely everything that you knew about a zombie game. It took all of that, everything about a zombie movie, crumpled it up, threw it in the garbage. We are going to do it this way. It's going to be a compelling story. It's going to be excellent gameplay. Something like that, but generally speaking about video games. Something that crumples up Call of Duty, throws it away, and says, this is Grand Theft Auto on crack in a different universe. Something that's big, something that you can do more with, and something that gives you options in the game, and something that isn't maybe a war or something. Some type of game with a conflict, possibly, that you don't have to kill people, per se. But, something that's not entirely too much like a movie. And I guess that's personal interest in what I'm looking for. And I guess until that's sort of met, I see video games being kind of stagnant. Maybe not worse, but you see what I mean by stagnant with a lot of games like the Call of Duty.
And I think what kind of hurts that is, one, games are becoming so expensive to make, and two, annualized franchises like Call of Duty, Assassin's Creed.
Yeah.
Kind of...
It perpetualizes how
you look at Call of Duty, each Call of Duty, there's not a whole lot of innovation there that was there when the first one came out. As much as each Assassin's Creed is different, it still has that extremely familiar feeling. I think because people game companies are businesses, you know, and their goal is to make money. So, annualized franchises could really hurt because, you know, it lacks originality that when something comes out like BioShock or Last of Us or whatever.
But then with the thing, if it's a business, then it's that, you know, yeah, there's not that much innovation, but then it's that familiarity that it's, oh, I get this because I enjoyed the last one, and it's going to kind of be the same. So
That's
I mean,
true.
it's kind of like
Some franchises.
it's that safe buy.
There needs to be more of. I agree with that. Another thing, though, I think there's two sides of it in the way I see it. One thing that I feel that has gotten much better with games is as much as, you know, it's kind of dying and has went away, you know, couch co-op, playing with your friends, you know, like that. I mean, it's still there. It's just not as much as it used to be. You know, online stuff, online services, and all that stuff. What the consoles can do is just so much better. But then at the same time, with these new consoles, it seems like there's a lot of games that are moving towards a always online, always connected, always living and breathing world, which could be great, but at the same time, I fear there might not be as many single-player games, just strictly single-player. Now, I love multiplayer. Multiplayer is fun, but I'm more of a single-player guy. I don't want my God of War to turn into a, you know, this online thing. You know what I mean? But at the same time, this is just personal opinion, you know, of course. I feel that's something that's gotten better, but something that I fear could get worse.
Yeah, one thing that, I mean, if we're going to add things that I think get better, I think it's this, in a way, player choice is a much bigger thing. And if you want to know why I think that touch anything that Telltale Games has made ever, and you will understand. Also play Mass Effect. You know, basically, if you want, like, you know, if you want a game that's not really, I mean, it's a zombie game, but, you know, it's kind of more choice-based, and it's more of, like, people-based, and, you know, you make your choices, play The Walking Dead. You know, you can probably buy it, like, Just Press Play or GameStop for, like, $20. But, like, games like that where, like, literally, it's not like you have to follow a specific path. You choose how you react. And then the story changes itself based on that. You know, you play... There's literally, because I'm about to go through my second playthrough of Season 1 of the Telltale Games The Walking Dead. Your choices in Episode 1 affect stuff that happens in Episode 5, which is the last episode of that season. You know, that's like how cool. Interwoven that story is. And it's really cool.
They're doing that with that other one that they have.
The Wolf Among Us.
Yeah.
The Wolf Among Us.
That is, player choice is definitely very cool.
So I think, like, now that is there, and I think it's coming in, even to somewhat into Call of Duty, I think that's cool, that's kind of, you know... I mean,
you guys have played more of it. Does that happen with Skyrim? Because some of the dialogue choices that you have, you can choose to be somewhat of an ass, or you can be cool.
You can,
you know?
I guess it's an RPG. That's the only thing. RPGs are kind of all choice, in a way.
That is true.
Like, but yeah, it's like...
But does it drastically change things?
You know, when you get abducted by the Dark Brotherhood, like when Luke was over, we were discussing, you can either choose to go through the Dark Brotherhood questline and join them at this point, or you can kill the person and you can start destroy the Dark Brotherhood questline. It's two completely different questlines based on that choice.
Cool. And at least I went through the Dark Brotherhood questline, and later on, in the town of Windhelm, I think.
Probably Windhelm.
I went to do this mission through the graveyard, I think it was called.
Yes,
something with that. Something with buying the house in Windhelm. And it wouldn't, you know, work or something because I went through the Dark Brotherhood quest. And I had to kill someone that was, I guess, somehow involved in this other quest line. And, you know, if you kill the wrong person, it couldn't come back to, you know, bite you. But
so it's like, it's every, you know, choice is a big thing nowadays, I think. I think that's, should be the next huge innovation in terms of like incorporating that into any game.
And also at the same time, I was saying, these online worlds at the same time, the worlds have gotten so much better. The environments that you play in. You pop in Skyrim and you're just floored by how gorgeous it is, the amount of stuff to see and do. You pop in Halo and you're just Halo's sci-fi universe is just mind blowing. Or you look at something like Mass Effect or something. The worlds are just so cool. That's something that's gotten better for sure.
I think it would be cool if a big video game, company, developer, anything, took some submissions for ideas of games and brought on a video game player, a person that plays video games, that likes a wide variety of video games, to help design a game. Because if anyone's watching, I have the perfect idea for a video game, beginning to end, but I think that would be cool.
Yeah, they do that in a way, but that's more of like, here, they get game test. You can get a job as a game tester. They'd be like, all right, what's good? This sucks. Don't put this in the game. Or no, you should do this. This would make a lot more sense to do here. It's like, oh, okay.
We're technically one of those like survey type things.
Yeah.
No, but someone that is captain of the game, they lead everything. A video game player design game.
Indie games.
Indie game. That's in essence every.
I mean, like, and not an indie game. I mean someone that has money to put into like something that's just gonna rule.
Well, I mean, technically, No Man's Sky is an indie game.
It does look pretty good.
I mean, you put enough time in anything
Yeah.
for it, but that's a little off topic. So at least what I was starting to delve down into.
I guess so. To sum it up, I feel like video games, at least to me, are a bit stagnant. It seems. I mean, at least with what I look at for video games, I think big titles. What are video games? Call of Duty. There's Halo. There's a lot of war. There's a lot of shooting, and yeah, there are other games and stuff. But it just feels like Keith said, he made an excellent point that games stick with what is going to bring home the money at the end of the day, and what's a sure thing. But I feel like that makes it a bit stagnant. At least looking at through the Call of Duty franchise, I feel like, Call of Duty.
I guess that, I see what you're saying. It also just, I guess it comes down to what your tastes are.
Yeah.
What you like. I like a lot of, RPGs and action adventure games. There's a ton out there. There's a ton coming out. So I think I'm excited about what's coming out. But yeah, I see what you're saying.
It's also, I think, a bit of what you're into when it comes to games.
Yeah.
Where if it's like, if you really like the gameplay, then, you're going to want lots of gameplay innovation. But if if you play a game more like, people buy the next Halo, a lot of people mostly for the next part of the story. So that's the thing, they're okay with, it's same old gameplay, but it's a new story. It's, it's kind of like that. A lot of people kind of, so that the story, which is, it's arguably storytelling has gotten better. That, with kind of an easier put in gameplay or much more streamlined gameplay, you could put a lot more focus on what the story is. So
I did like the point that you made about decision making in the game. Mm-hmm. That's or one of you guys said about that. But it is that does make games more interesting, and compared to old games where you had to do this. It's cool to see variety within a video game, and at least me, I'm just waiting for that right game to come along. You gotta find the right woman, you gotta find the right video game, the one you want to spend your life with. I think The Last of Us is good, but
any last thoughts?
I think that last thing was kind of my last thought, which is story. At least me, I enjoy the stories more than the gameplay.
But my last thing.
Good.
If any video game developers are watching, I have a good video game that, I swear, it's a moneymaker. People are going to like it. Nothing like it out there.
My last thought is, if Battlefield 4 is the way of the future, well, fuck.
Or we're fucked. Bye. Blaze it.
No more